I want to talk about PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder. I went on the internet to look up some different sites about defining it, and the most useful that I found was Wikipedia, but I do have other sources in my little notes here. PTSD is a mental disorder that sometimes occurs in the aftermath of situations that involve some type of violence or physical harm. Many people associate PTSD with soldiers who have experienced war. However, PTSD can also appear in the aftermath of situations that include kidnapping, automobile accidents, earthquakes, civilian bombings, floods, train wrecks, rapes, severe child abuse, and child sexual abuse. Some PTSD symptoms may include disturbing thoughts, feelings, or dreams related to the traumatic event, mental or physical distress to trauma related cues, uh, alterations in how a person thinks and feels, increased arousal, avoiding situations that remind you of the event, severe anxiety, suicidal thoughts. Now, another form of PTSD is complex PTSD, which is also known as developmental trauma disorder. This occurs when a person is exposed to a traumatic event that recurs over a period of months or even years. Situations that can lead to complex PTSD include captivity or entrapment, as well as psychological manipulation, which can result in a prolonged sense of helplessness and deformation of one's identity and sense of self. Forms of trauma associated with complex PTSD involve a history of prolonged subjection to totalitarian control, including sexual abuse, especially child sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, domestic violence, torture, or psychological torture. All repeated or prolonged traumas in which there is an inability for the victim to escape. In addition to PTSD, untreated adult victims of child sexual abuse can develop serious problems, including severe anxiety regarding expressions of sexuality, poor self esteem, trouble sustaining intimate relationships, depression, difficulty establishing appropriate social boundaries, participating in sexually risky behaviors, or a distorted body image. Also included are suicidal thinking, engaging in suicidal behaviors, and possibly addictive relationships to food, alcohol, or drugs. I went to several different therapists before I was finally correctly diagnosed with complex PTSD. Uh, when I started seeing these therapists, most of them only cared about the money or themselves, so they didn't really try to help me. So when I first started going to therapy, I tried. I really tried. I tried their drugs that they gave me, which didn't help. They only made things worse. I tried going in and talking to them when they acted like they didn't even want me to be there. One that I went and seen, all she did while I was there was fill out paperwork. She never talked to me about what was going on, what had happened, nothing. So I gave up. And I tried again after my children had got older. And again, I was faced with these therapists that really didn't care. But a few years ago, I finally found someone who did care, and someone, like I said, correctly diagnosed me with complex PTSD. And we have been working ever since on trying to at least help me deal with what I have been going through. The reason that I have complex PTSD is because from birth until I was 6 years old, I lived with a mother who was severely abusive and a father who was severely neglectful. The state finally took me and my brothers and my sister from our parents because she was going to kill us. We were separated and placed with family members, and then I eventually was sent to a foster home. From the age of 7 to 11, I was tortured in every way you can think of by these people. Um, then, when I was 11, my mother got me out of the situation. I went back with her. She was even more abusive than she was when we were children. And at this point, we were still wards of the state, but we lied because we were back together. Our main thing was being with each other. Us siblings, we were close. We never had parents. So being with mom was not the point. We were together and we wanted to stay together. So we lied to the state and told them that everything was fine. But as I said, mom was even worse than she was when we were small. She again tried to kill every single one of us. Uh, she she had her own problems, and she was mistreated as a child. She had no idea how to be a parent. She only knew how to be mean, and that's what she did. Um, when I was 18, I was involved in a car wreck that nearly took my life. I got third and fourth degree burns from it. I was told that I would never walk. Uh, it was a bad situation that helped add to my complex PTSD. Then I got pregnant, and I thought about not telling the father and just going on, but I had been raised without parents, so I wanted my kids to have a better life than me. So I told him that I was pregnant, and we eventually got married. And 3 kids later, things didn't work out. Uh, we were married for 14 years before I had finally had enough. He would not stop cheating. He would not work. He was not a good person. He wouldn't hardly have anything to do with the children. So I thought that me and the children would be better off. So I threw him out. And years later, we got divorced. But after he left, he came around for a little while and saw the children. I would never keep my children's father away from them. But he eventually decided that he didn't want to have anything to do with them either. So I was left completely alone to raise these 3 kids. And since I had never had parents, I didn't know exactly what to do. So I did the best I could. But I have to admit that my ex-husband put me through more years of torture and trauma than anyone else in my life. He wasn't there for the children like he should have been. He wasn't there for me, and it caused a lot more problems. If he had been a decent person and helped me and helped my children, I probably wouldn't have got as bad with my PTSD as I did. But I have basically been alone my entire life, and these videos are going to explain my life and explain why I have complex PTSD. A lot of people in my life have not believed me. They've treated me as if I was lying when I've told them what was happening with me. They've treated me as if I was lazy, like I didn't want to work, because eventually, after my children were grown, I got to the point where I could not handle society anymore, and I ended up homeless. I lived in my car for a while. I did stay with a family member here and there for a little while, but for 2 to 3 years, I was basically homeless. And a year ago, I got this apartment that I'm living in now, thanks to the government. And I'm trying to survive every day, because one of those symptoms of PTSD is suicidal thoughts. And I have those almost daily. So surviving is my number one thing. But I want to get information about the PTSD out there so people can understand it better and understand that it doesn't just affect soldiers, it affects other people too. And I thank you for coming with me on my journey. See ya.